Well, another terror attack on U.S. soil. And they're growing. This time it's Bourbon Street. Years ago, I prophesied when I testified in a Supreme Court case, Ragsdale versus Turnock, with Judge Nordberg in Chicago. It's around 1990. I prophesied literally in court in this case, when it's open to citizen public testimony, that if he ruled in favor of abortion, that there would be bloodshed on U.S. soil and there'd be terrorism on U.S. soil, and it has come true. Well, it took 35 years, 1990 until 2025, um, but it has come true. As part of the Supreme Court record, if anybody wants to check it. Judge Nordberg, Nordberg. He set their poker face as I testified for my 5 minutes on why Ragsdale versus Turnock should not be taken off the U.S. Supreme Court docket when Neil Hartigan, who used to be a pro-life Democrat, one of the last ones in Chicago, defected in the middle of the case while he was defending babies. He switched over to the pro-abortion side. So Jim Edgar, the pro-abortion Republican, and Hartigan, Neil Hartigan, the recently converted a pro-abortion Democrat, were both on the same side, and so they trashed it. They pulled it off the Supreme Court. We could have overturned Roe versus Wade back in 1990 if they wouldn't have defected and done that many years earlier. But then again, I am waxing nostalgic. Those were the days when we got about 80,000 people arrested in front of abortion clinics. I was doing the publicity for Operation Rescue and the other rescue groups in front of abortion clinics. And I myself got arrested a couple of times in that historic process. By the way, we got more than double the arrests of Martin Luther King in the civil rights era. I don't understand. Why isn't there a holiday for a generic pro-life preborn baby? That would be nice. Have a national holiday instead for Jimmy Carter. They're talking about a national holiday for Jimmy Carter, one of the worst presidents in history. Why don't you have a national holiday for the preborn, the innocent, defenseless preborn children? Now let's go to this Islamic terrorist attack. On the last day of 2024, December 31st, there was a terror attack on Bourbon Street in New Orleans. Oh my, the beginning of many, I think, unfortunately, involving an ISIS terrorist driving a vehicle intentionally driven into a crowd. The suspect was identified as, I think his name was Shamsud Din Jabbar. He was 40 something year old. Let me look this up. Yeah, 42-year-old Army veteran, U.S. Army veteran from Texas, and he had converted to Islam at a young age. Well, you get your Easter and Christmas Christians that show up on funerals, weddings, Easter and Christmas 4 times a year. You see them in church. And then after that, they say, well, if I show up anymore, the ceiling will cave in on me. Well, we got Muslims that are similar. You got radical Muslims, you got moderate Muslims. It's no different. It's the ones that would be instead of bowing down 5 times a day to Mecca and stuff, you got some that want uh, rock and roll and westernized stuff. Like in Iran, for instance, a lot of the men, I mean, half the male population approximately was killed in wars. They would like to get some regular old stuff, westernized music and culture and so forth. And they don't like the Islamic regime, the hardline mullahs. They're very anti-mullah. The Persian people in Iran largely are very anti-mullah. They're looking for regime change. We wish them the best and hope they secure that. Let's go into the details of the story. Jabbar had pledged allegiance to Islam and even a very well. There's different ones. You got Al Qaeda, ISIS. There's different. Basically, it's all flavors of the same tree. If you're radicalized and you're for taking Islamic scriptures um, in such a way that justifies killing people, you're attracted to ISIS, you're attracted to Al Qaeda, etc. On the other hand, if you are attracted to westernized culture and rock and roll and whatever else, and you still are praying to a God named Allah that you view as God, the way I would pray to God or a Jewish person would pray to Yahweh, God, it's a lot safer than it is worshiping a God of evil and terror and murder like Satan. But I'm not the theologian here. I'm just saying. Jabbar pledged allegiance to Islam and to ISIS, and he waged an attack. It's pretty predictable. If somebody is going to um, take certain scriptures as justification for killing infidels, those who do not believe as they do, then stuff like this is going to happen. We're going to see more of it, especially where the southern border. Now, the early reports were speculating that somebody drove a truck across the southern border and did the Bourbon Street attack. I don't believe that's true, but it doesn't matter. What's the difference if somebody comes across a porous southern border from the Middle East, for instance, through Mexico? Or if they come through the U.S. Army, infiltrating the Army for the day that they could attack someday. They get training in the Army, they learn how to use bombs and guns and whatever else. Hey, if you're going to infiltrate the United States, what better way there is there than to join the Army? Especially when a lot of Americans don't want to enlist. They don't oftentimes believe they're fighting for a good cause. The youth of America are not motivated. But with Trump coming in, you're seeing high levels of volunteerism now, inducting themselves into the military and more into the Space Force, too. Donald Trump created the Space Force, and that's creating a vision for those who grew up with Star Wars. All of a sudden, they're thinking, wow, let's join the Army. No, let's join the Space Force. Okay, so now Melody Taylor Greene had reported that the attacker might have been from across the southern border, but we appreciate what she does. It was easy to speculate that. And again, it doesn't matter. But the mainstream media majored on the minors. All they talk about is, oh, Melody Taylor Greene was wrong. She was saying it came across the southern border. How about calling a spade a spade? Terrorism is terrorism. Doesn't matter where they came in from, they came in. Does it mean that we should loosen up the border just because this particular terrorist was not from Mexico? And it's a joke when you see the people crossing, they're not Hispanic. So many of them. I think it's over 100 different countries they're from. I mean, former nations within the Soviet Union and so forth, and a lot from the Middle East. It's a dangerous situation at the border. So don't let anybody soften the border or convince you to soften the borders because this particular terrorist did not happen to have driven in from Acapulco. Okay. The attack and right now, the numbers are 5 fatalities and 12 injuries. It's probably going to be more when the numbers come out more. But it's sad. They ranged from age 19 or 18 to 65. Equal opportunity killer. Of course, the attacker likely justified the killing by saying he was killing infidels instead of human beings. Well, I am telling you right now, um, we have to do something to protect the United States. I hope the United States can hold it together until January 20th, until Trump gets in. It's a long time until then. We got a full 17 days. A lot of mischief, a lot of terror could happen between now and January 20th, or even on January 20th on the inauguration. Of course, that would be very predictable to have terror attacks on the inauguration. And a lot of times the terrorists will do something in a time that's not a predictable time. And afterwards, you find out it had some symbolism having to do with a Quranic scripture or some ancient invasion day or something like that. And we don't know until afterwards. And some religious scholars will come up with why they did it on that day, etc. So law enforcement, to their credit, responded very quickly. They neutralized the suspect, and that was good. We got to keep supporting law enforcement. They are our friends, the men in blue. Yes, yeah. Every so often, we get a bad lot of somebody in any profession, including police. But generally speaking, policemen are very dedicated to serve and to protect. And we've got to support our men in blue and our women in blue. Now, legacy media ignores the mainstream doctrine of these terrorists, and they don't want to touch it with a 10-foot pole. Instead, they'll want to major on the minors and talk about how people like Melody Taylor Greene are wrong. Well, is it any wonder why more of the younger generation are getting news from TikTok than from lamestream Legacy Media. I'm Jerry McLaughlin. Thank you for tuning in. We'll have more opinions on news and other stories as they break. Remember, on the Opinions channel, it's our opinion. Everybody's got at least two, like armpits. We all have at least a couple of opinions. So don't call fake news because you're really calling it fake opinions. These are my opinions. You have your opinion, and let's let opinions prevail and continue in free speech in the United States of America. Long live the First Amendment. God bless you.